As you guys know, I like to dive into the story of Call of Duty. Another thing that I like is the little Easter eggs that are put into the game, and as far as Treyarch goes, they really do Easter eggs unlike any other Call of Duty studio, and Black Ops 6 is absolutely no exception. As far as Black Ops 6 goes, there are these Easter eggs in the campaign, in the multiplayer, in zombies, and a bunch of them actually have to do with the overall story of the game. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be going over 10 hidden details, secrets, Easter eggs within the Black Ops 6 campaign. And if you like this type of video and maybe want to see me do them more, hit that like button and maybe let me know some things that I didn't cover down in the comments below, because there are a ton of these in all of the modes, and all of them that we're going to look at today all have to do with the story of the game, and some of them are really big. For example, this first one. So we've already talked about the mystery of Case, who he really is, his backstory, and everything along those lines. And as I mentioned in that video, one of the things that's interesting about Case is you can't see him. For example, when you're playing as Case, if you call in an RCXD and go to look at your body, it's just not there. And this is the same throughout the entire campaign on any mission whatsoever. He cannot be seen except for one instance, and that is in the mission called Hunting Season. This is the open world mission where you get the TAC map. You're alongside Helen Park, Troy Marshall, and a couple other characters from the SAS. You are going in Operation Desert Storm, and eventually you get to the area where it becomes an open world mission. And you actually have to go into third person at one point when you are driving the vehicle. And when you do, you can actually give yourself a closer look at Case. Now, the interesting thing about this is he is the only character in this mission where his face is completely covered. You cannot see it whatsoever, and if you don't think that's done on purpose, you must be insane. But it actually goes a step further from this, because if you later go back to the evidence board and look at this mission, there is a picture of all of the characters from this mission, like all of them, even the minor characters, in one. You can see Troy Marshall, you can see Helen Park. The one person you cannot see in this picture is Case. The next one has to do with Jane Harrow and Case. In this one, in the very first mission called Bishop Takes Rook, we are going into Kuwait and we are trying to capture someone by the name of Alawi. And when we do, we get there and there's some bad guys falling out of a vehicle. If you just move on up towards the next part of the mission, Jane Harrow actually eliminates these people and says this.
Movement, truck doors.
Got it.
2 targets down.
More to come. Keep pushing into the smoke.
Another one.
They'll know we're here soon. Be ready.
However, if you quite literally jump the gun and beat her to it, she then says this.
Movement, truck doors.
Got it. There's that shooting I remember.
There is that shooting I remember. Now, this you could just knock off to her knowing Case and maybe hiring her. I mean, after all, Jane Harrow is his higher up at this point. But I think there is much more to this involving Cradle, the backstory of Jane Harrow, and the backstory of Case as a whole, and them being much more involved than we all realize. But if you'd like to see that in a future video, you can show me by hitting that like button. But moving on to the next thing. Speaking of Bishop Takes Rook, that's exactly what Adler tells Woods, which leads us to the safe house in Bulgaria.
Bishop Takes Rook. Of course, Woods knew what it meant. Adler was pointing us somewhere. The Black Sea. According to Woods, 15 years ago, he and Adler discovered an abandoned KGB safe house in Bulgaria. It was called the Rook. Last year, before Adler disappeared, he'd been chasing rumors of a dangerous paramilitary group, one receiving orders from inside the CIA.
Now, you may have noticed if you played through the campaign that as you go through, the safe house kind of changes and evolves. But one that you probably didn't realize is that inside of Troy Marshall's bedroom, the first time you go in there at the very beginning, things aren't set up. It looks as though he was just dropping off his bags. However, if you go in there after every single mission, every single time you go back to the safe house, there is a chess game on the table. And as the campaign moves forward, you get further and further and further into said chess game until eventually white is finally winning. And I believe they're actually one move away from checkmate in this position, which honestly is such a cool piece of attention to detail. I really like that they add this kind of stuff in. Also, Troy Marshall's bedroom changes drastically. There's pictures everywhere. interesting as well, but the chess game is interesting because, believe it or not, there are a ton of references to chess throughout the game, like bishop takes rook, for example, but the final mission of the game, just like the chessboard, is titled Checkmate. Now, while we are at the safe house, let's look at a couple more story elements that weren't directly given to us. For this, we need to go to the evidence board. There's essentially a bunch of pieces of paper on the evidence board here that if you don't like take a minute and actually look at, you can't like read them in menus or anything like that. But there's two that I wanted to point out. Number one is a piece of paper saying that Troy Marshall has been suspended. This one was pasted up there and I found this rather interesting. But the one that plays a lot more into the story of the game is the one from the mission Emergence. Here you can find a piece of paper that actually details the fact that Cradle has started its development not in the year 1981 like we thought, but actually 5 years earlier in 1976. And then clearly tests on human subjects started much later in the year 1981. For the next mission, we are going to Vorkuta. Now, this is an interesting one because if you didn't play older Black Ops games, Vorkuta was originally in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. But in Black Ops 6, if we go to a specific spot on the map, we can actually see a crashed helicopter. The interesting thing about this crashed helicopter is it has a rope hanging off the back of it. And if you've ever wondered why, it's because you need to skewer the winged beast.
Let's hope this works.
Mason, grab the harpoon! Choose your moment!
Now, what's cool about this is it's actually crashed in the exact same spot from Black Ops 1. You can see the two kind of towers beside where it actually crashed, which I thought was really, really cool. But on top of this, if you play the mission and actually take out the helicopters with the SAM turrets, if you do the mission that way, you actually get a mission called Skewer the Winged Beast. For the next one, we move to the mission called Most Wanted. This is where you break into the political gala. And as far as this one goes, if you complete the mission in a specific way, at one point, some CIA agents actually show up. And if you get caught by them, you simply lose. However, one of these agents that actually shows up, in other words, he works for the CIA, is Jackson Kane, who is the leader of the Crimson One division within multiplayer, aka the bad guys. Therefore telling us he's in the CIA, he's a bad guy. In other words, he's a part of Pantheon. Also, a lot of people are saying there's a pretty big similarity between Jackson Kane and that CIA agent that shows up at the very end of the post-credit scene of the campaign. Now, speaking of bad guys, this is one I feel I need to dive into a little further in another video as well. So again, want to see these kind of things, be sure to hit that like button. It shows me you like these type of story videos. But this one is about Adler being evil. We already know that his morals are really, really out the window for many reasons. But there is another really big one in the mission where you go into the destroyed airport. Now, at this point, an airstrike has hit in the airport and it has taken out a bunch of soldiers and even maybe some civilians. But the thing with this is you hit a point where you are going through and Adler sees someone downed without a weapon who is clearly in pain. And normally Sims lets you know that they don't have a weapon.
Check your corners. They look unarmed. Stay cool.
And essentially, if you do nothing, you just move on past this and nothing happens. However, if you go and pick the lock that is kind of like right in front of that person, then and only then, because you are not looking, Russell Adler kills them. And this is what Sims has to say about it.
Adler.
What? Saw him reach for his gun.
He was unarmed. We got rules, Adler.
Can we just get back to the mission?
Unbelievable.
And this kind of plays into Russell Adler's mystery as to like really what type of character he actually is. Finally, this one shouldn't be a surprise because this is a Call of Duty game, but in the same mission, Burgertown returns once again. You can see a bunch of advertisements for it. On top of that, you can also see a Burgertown in the flesh. So this has been 10 hidden details / Easter eggs / whatever you want to call it about the Black Ops 6 campaign. As I mentioned, there are a ton more of these hidden in the campaign, the multiplayer, zombies scattered throughout the multiplayer maps, pretty much everywhere you look. And if you want to see more videos like this one, the best way to show me is by hitting that like button. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on everything Call of Duty, be sure to subscribe, turn notifications on, all that kind of jazz. And until next time, peace.
We are